Some of the strangest mysteries are ones that come from the military, especially when the military confirms they have a mystery on their hands. Number 5. During the Cold War, there were several occasions when Sweden noticed unidentified submarines in their waters. Many of these were attributed to the Soviet Union and were run out of Swedish waters before they could be properly investigated. The Soviet Union denied any involvement with the frequent unidentified submerged objects. One submarine that was confirmed to be from the USSR ended up in Sweden due to navigation errors, according to the Soviets. After the end of the World War, USO sightings pretty much disappeared. There have been a handful of sightings since, including one in 2011 that turned out to be a raft frozen in ice. But the strangest of these sightings occurred in October of 2014. Over the course of about a week, there were at least 3 sightings of a strange object in a bay near Stockholm. The object appeared to be a damaged submarine, and authorities told local news organizations it had detected distress calls from the area. The sightings triggered one of the biggest searches since the end of the Cold War. More than 200 personnel were deployed to try to locate what was hiding beneath the waters. A wide variety of vessels, including a minesweeper, were deployed for a wide-ranging search. The military revealed a photograph of the mysterious object to the press. The image was grainy, the object photographed from afar through a cluster of trees. It was reminiscent of a conspiracy photo of a secretive sea creature, but the authorities claim it came from a reliable source. A few days later, it emerged authorities had misdirected the press about where the photo was taken. Apparently, revealing the information would help a foreign power. It became increasingly clear the Swedish authorities believed the unidentified object was a foreign military vessel. The story only became more tense after it was revealed the military had intercepted an encoded radio conversation in Russian near where a fleet of Russian submarines were based. It was a time of rising tensions in the area, and Russia had been accused of interfering with the activities of a number of Sweden's neighbors. Russia denied any involvement. There were no submarines in any extraordinary circumstances, and there definitely weren't any damaged vessels in the bay. After a week, the search was called off. The bay is well trafficked by merchant ships and littered with small islands, making the search incredibly difficult. But no sign of a submarine was found, leaving the reports unexplained. Number 4. UFOs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, are of great concern to the US military. While some are explained away by civilian drones or other mundane things, anything that remains unidentified could possibly pose a threat to national security. One area of significant concern is a zone designated W12. The area lies off the coast of Virginia and North Carolina, and is classified as a warning area and is often used by military aircraft for training, making it hazardous for civilian aircrafts to travel through. Since 2014, several pilots and airmen flying through the zone have encountered UAPs. It became such a frequent occurrence that the Pentagon's UAP task force asked pilots to capture footage of these phenomena if they got a chance. In March of 2019, a weapons system officer used his iPhone to fulfill this request. The officer was one of 2 people in an F-18 Super Hornet, a type of jet that's frequently used for flights in the area. He was seated behind the pilot for the flight and noticed several UAPs. The first object was one the Navy referred to as the Sphere. It was white in color and appeared to be see-through. As the name suggests, It was found to have a ring-like structure on its surface. A second object was photographed a few minutes later. This one had been dubbed the Acorn. It appeared to be more solid and darker in color. It was a rounded triangle in shape, hence the name. The final UAP photographed was spotted 12 minutes later and was very different to the first two. It had been described as a metallic blimp and is mostly round in shape, but has a number of appendages. It also doesn't appear to be one solid color, but instead has darker areas. It's not clear if these are actually darker on the UAP, or are simply a reflection of its surroundings. The Navy has confirmed the photos are legitimate, and the UAPs really are unknown. One suggestion is these are spy drones sent by China, explaining why the Pentagon is so interested in them. Skeptics have described them as nothing more than balloons. However, leaked information from the UAP task force briefings indicated the objects remained stationary even at high wind speeds and do not behave like anything known to the military. Number 3. Craig David Button disappeared under strange circumstances during an Air Force training exercise. He left behind a mystery that would not be resolved, even when his remains were eventually found. Button had been interested in airplanes from a young age and had started his Air Force career in 1992, following in the footsteps of his father, who'd also been in that branch of the military. It was a move that went against the wishes of his mother, who was a devoted Jehovah's Witness and would not let her son wear his uniform at home. Despite his mother's wishes, by 1997 he was a captain. However, he'd never dropped live rounds before. This was set to change on April 2nd, 1997, during a training exercise with 2 other airmen. That morning, Button and 2 other airmen set off from an airbase in Arizona in single-seater A-10 Thunderbolt II planes. They were all carrying explosives which were set to be dropped during the training exercise. The planes were refueled as scheduled mid-flight before the explosives were set to be deployed. Sometime after this, Button broke formation, heading to the northeast. The 2 planes did not follow him, and nobody made any attempt to intercept the plane while it was in midair. The plane's transponder had been turned off. While it still appeared on radar, it was impossible to know who the plane was, and Button did not respond to any messages requesting identification. It was only after the radar records were analyzed that the military were able to trace Button's flight. It was found that he'd flown straight for 800 miles towards 4 Corners, where the border of 4 states meet, before changing course. The plane changed direction several more times and appeared to be moving around bad weather, leading investigators convinced Button was still in control of the plane at this point. The last sighting was near a mountain range near Denver. Searches in the area were hampered by storms that left a thick layer of snow, but 3 weeks later, the plane was finally found. Debris had been strewn over a large area, and though recovery efforts tried to collect as much as possible, signs were left for years warning visitors that they may come across ammunition. It took 4 months, but Button's remains were finally recovered. He hadn't attempted to jettison the aircraft, and it appeared there would be no reason why he wouldn't have been in control of the plane up until the crash. There were 2 mysteries that still surround the strange event. Why will likely never be answered. Some have speculated a conversation with Button's parents had left him distraught, prompting him to commit the act. Others suggest it was part of some conspiracy. Possibly even stranger is the location of the 4 500-pound explosives that the plane had been carrying. They were designed to withstand a crash, and there was no sign they'd been accidentally detonated on impact. The racks they were attached to were found in the wreckage and indicated they hadn't been jettisoned at any point. But despite extensive searches, including some from members of the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team, they would never be found. Number 2. The photo of Goddard Squadron is probably one of the most famous military photos of its kind. No doubt there are countless like it, rows of servicemen and women in uniform gazing stone-faced at the camera. On the face of it, the most unusual thing about this photo is the number of different uniforms on display, representing a large number of different organizations working together at the same site. But of course, the reason why this photo is so famous is the unaccounted-for man behind the back row. The photo was first published in the 1970s and dates back to the final year of World War I. According to the story, the photo was taken a few days after a man named Freddie Jackson passed away after walking into an active airplane propeller. After the image was developed, it was pinned to a notice board with a memo asking anyone who wanted a copy of the image to write their name below. Everyone who looked at the photo all noticed the same mysterious figure at the back of the group, and all said he bore a striking resemblance to Freddie Jackson. Image manipulation was ruled out. The people in the darkroom wouldn't have dared to mess around with the image, according to the author, and the negatives had been scrutinized and ruled out any foul play. The only explanation was that Freddie Jackson hadn't realized he'd passed away and came to join the rest of his coworkers for the photo. Naturally, there are plenty of skeptics. Despite the image only being published decades later, the author knew the people in the photograph, and one of the women featured also has spoken about the supposed ghost, though not until after the photo became famous. The photo itself appears to be genuine, and the fact the person who the story originated from knew the subjects only lends the story more credibility. Air mechanic Freddie Jackson is also known to have been a real person who likely worked at the base where the photo had been taken. George Frederick Jackson passed away on April 13, 1918, at a hospital a few hundred miles from the supposed incident. Though the official story dates the accident a few months later, closer to the very end of the war, it's possible the dates were mixed up. The base swapped between various organizations a number of times as the Royal Air Force was developed, explaining the large number of organizations represented in the photo. If the photo was taken just before one of these swaps, it's possible the author mixed up the date that way. There are a number of explanations that have been put forward to explain the supposed ghost. Some point out the similarities between the ghost image and the man he stood behind, saying that some mistake was made that copied the image behind him. Others have suggested the ghost was actually another airman who dropped his cap as the photo was being taken and ducked down to collect it during the long exposure time, hence why he appears so faded. It's unlikely an explanation that satisfies everyone will be found, especially with the few hints at fact that have been blended into the history. Number 1. The Tic Tac UFO encounter is one of the most famous unexplained aerial phenomena to be caught on camera. The images were captured by a US fighter pilot in 2004, leaked in 2017, and finally confirmed to be authentic 2 years later. What was present in the skies that day remains a mystery. In the weeks leading up to the incident, servicemen working off the US West Coast had noticed a number of unexplained blips on their radars. The blips didn't appear to correspond with anything that could be seen by the naked eye, and all other radar equipment was serviced, as it was assumed something had to be faulty. No explanation for the phenomena could ever be found. Pilots operating in the area were told to be on the lookout for anything unusual, and on November 14, 2004, at least 2 servicemen saw something that fit the criteria. Commander David Fravor was the first to spot the object. He was flying a mission off the USS Nimitz when he saw the unusual activity. An object appeared to dive beneath the water, resurface, and fly away at high speed when the commander tried to approach it. The commander told the serviceman he shared the craft with that the incident weirded him out. Chad Underwood was the pilot who captured the now famous footage of the UFO. The anomaly appeared on his radar, but when Underwood tried to lock onto it, he found the radar had been jammed. Instead, he turned his attention to the jet's cameras, which were extremely advanced and featured the best tracking technology available at the time. The footage had now been labeled FLIR by the government and is about 1.5 minutes in length. It shows an oval-shaped anomaly, about 40 feet long, and appeared black in shape when viewed through a normal camera. When the camera switched to infrared, it appeared bright white, earning the Tic Tac name. Underwood claimed the object acted very strangely, accelerating, decelerating, and changing direction impossibly quick. Even the advanced technology in the camera couldn't keep track of it, and it eventually shot away. Underwood did not claim it was extraterrestrial in nature, but did say that it didn't obey the laws of physics. The footage is yet to be explained. Some have suggested it was an experimental, top-secret government craft. But if this were the case, why it was piloted out in the open, where personnel without security clearance were operating, is another mystery. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.